I never expected a simple conversation with my dad to change everything in our house. It started like any other evening, the kind where the air feels heavier than usual, and you sense that something small, but important, is about to happen. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when Dad came in, looking unusually serious. There was this tension around him, like he had been carrying something for days and couldn't hold it in anymore. "Hey, can we talk for a minute?" he asked, and even though his voice was quiet, it felt heavier than a scream. I nodded, a little confused, a little nervous. We moved to the kitchen, the one place in the house where conversations could linger without anyone overhearing, or so I thought. I could feel the weight of what he was about to say pressing down on me. My mind was racing. Did something happen at work? Is it about money? Or something worse? As soon as I opened my mouth, trying to sound casual, Dad cut me off with a small shake of his head. "No, not casual," he said. "This is serious. I need you to understand something before it's too late." His hands trembled slightly, and I realized that whatever he was about to tell me, he hadn't told anyone else, not even Mom. And that's when the first wave of unease hit me. We started talking quietly, almost in whispers, though the clock on the wall ticked loud enough to echo. Words that felt normal at first slowly turned into something I didn't fully understand, something that made my chest tighten and my stomach drop. My dad looked at me, eyes full of warning, but also fear. And then, just when I thought I could handle it, we both froze. That's when I heard the creak of the front door. I turned, and in the doorway stood Mom. She didn't say anything. She didn't even blink. Her face was pale, her lips pressed together like she was trying not to scream. And the thing that made my heart stop wasn't just her silence. It was the way she didn't move, didn't speak, just watched. For a moment, time seemed to stretch. I couldn't figure out if she had heard everything or just part of it. Dad's hand clenched into a fist on the counter. I could feel my pulse in my ears. And then she turned and walked out of the kitchen. Not a word. Not a single sound. Just left, like we weren't even there. I sat there, frozen, staring at the empty doorway, my stomach twisting. What had I just said? What had Dad just revealed that made her leave like that? I knew one thing. Nothing in our house would ever feel the same again. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Mom had just heard was going to change everything. Ever since I can remember, our house had its routines. Dad was quiet but steady, the kind of man who said little but acted a lot. Mom, on the other hand, had a presence you couldn't ignore, warm, attentive, but fiercely protective of our family. I thought I knew them both inside out. I thought I understood the way our family worked. But that night made me realize I hadn't known anything at all. Dad and I had always had a private understanding. Maybe it came from growing up watching him handle life without showing weakness, or maybe it was just how we connected. We shared small things that Mom didn't need to know. His little jokes, his quiet worries, and sometimes secrets he didn't even realize were important. It wasn't that he didn't trust Mom. It was more like he had walls built from years of experience, and I had accidentally stepped inside the one place he had opened just for me. Mom had a way of noticing everything, or so I thought. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and she had an instinct for when something was off. But sometimes, the very things she was meant to protect us from, she didn't see coming. I remember thinking, many times, that she was untouchable, like a lighthouse that could weather any storm. That night, though, it felt like the lighthouse was cracking, and I was standing too close to watch it fall apart. Leading up to that evening, life had been normal, but there were hints. Small arguments that faded into silence, glances that lingered too long, and a few moments when I caught Dad looking at Mom like he was trying to memorize her before something changed. I brushed it off at first. Families have tension. People disagree. But that night, the air between them wasn't just tension. It was something heavier, something that had been building for a long time, hiding under laughter and routine. As Dad and I talked in the kitchen, I could feel pieces of that tension in his words. He wasn't just talking about work, money, or something simple. He was warning me, preparing me, and hoping I would understand without having to spell it all out. But I also knew that no matter how carefully we spoke, some things could never be undone once they were out in the open. And then there was Mom. I kept picturing her in the doorway, frozen, hearing what she wasn't supposed to hear, yet somehow had. Her silence wasn't just shock. It felt like a question that had no answer, a judgment that hadn't been made but already hung over us. I couldn't tell if she was angry, hurt, or scared. All I knew was that she had chosen to leave rather than confront us, leaving the conversation hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. Sitting there, I realized I was in uncharted territory. Nothing about that night felt familiar anymore. The house seemed quieter, heavier, and the ticking clock on the wall suddenly sounded like a warning. Every word Dad had said replayed in my mind, each one carrying weight I wasn't sure I was ready for. And I couldn't shake the feeling that Mom walking out without a word wasn't the end of this. It was the very beginning. After Mom walked out, the kitchen felt impossibly silent. Dad and I didn't speak for a few long moments, both of us frozen, both of us aware that whatever had just happened wasn't something you could easily fix. My heart was racing, my mind scrambling to understand what had just gone wrong. I wanted to ask Dad, what did she hear? But even that question felt too dangerous. Dad ran a hand through his hair and sighed, a sound that carried more exhaustion than I'd ever heard from him. I didn't mean for her to hear that, he admitted quietly, almost to himself. But the look on his face told me it was more complicated than regret. There was fear there too. Fear that something we had just said could unravel everything we thought was safe. I tried to make sense of it. Was it about money? Or something about the house? Maybe a family secret I wasn't supposed to know yet? My stomach twisted at the thought that whatever it was, it had hit Mom hard enough to make her leave without a word. I'd never seen her like that. So quiet, so distant, so untouchable, yet suddenly fragile. The tension between Dad and me grew with every passing second. Our usual easy conversations were gone, replaced by cautious words and half-finished thoughts. I wanted answers, but every question seemed like it could ignite something dangerous. My hands shook as I realized that our little kitchen talk had crossed an invisible line, one that Mom was standing on the other side of, even if she wasn't in the room. Outside, I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of cars passing, but inside, the silence was deafening. It was like the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. And deep down, I knew it wasn't just Mom's silence that mattered. It was what she had heard, what she now knew, and what it meant for our family. Then I caught movement out of the corner of my eye. A shadow flicked across the hallway, just long enough for me to see it, just enough to make my pulse spike. I froze. Dad looked too, his eyes narrowing, a mix of worry and urgency I couldn't fully understand. The shadow was fleeting, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. Whatever Mom had heard, whatever secret had been revealed, it was only the beginning. The house felt different after that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant sound from the street outside, made my skin prickle. Mom hadn't returned to the kitchen. She hadn't come down for dinner. In fact, she barely spoke at all, moving through the house like a ghost. I tried to catch her eye, to ask if she was okay, but she avoided me completely, as if the very walls carried the weight of what she had overheard. Dad, meanwhile, seemed tense. He paced more than usual, muttering under his breath, checking his phone constantly, as if waiting for some invisible signal. I wanted to ask what was going on, but every time I opened my mouth, the words died in my throat. There was fear in the air, not the kind that came from a fight or a mistake, but the kind that comes from knowing something irreversibly serious has been revealed. I started replaying the conversation in my mind, analyzing every word, every pause. What had Dad said that hit Mom so hard? Was it about money? About a distant relative? Or something else, something deeper? My stomach churned with guilt, though I didn't fully understand why. I felt like we had all crossed an invisible line, and now there was no way to step back. The tension escalated the next morning. Mom left the house without saying a word, slipping into her car like she was escaping, not just the conversation, but the reality of what she had just discovered. Dad didn't stop her. He just stood by the doorway, silent, as if he knew that following her wouldn't help, and maybe it could make everything worse. I felt trapped, watching him, feeling the weight of every unspoken truth pressing down on me. Later, I tried to confront Dad, but he only shook his head. Not yet. She needs time, and so do you. I wanted to argue, but the urgency in his voice left no room. There was a heaviness to his words, a quiet warning that whatever was coming wouldn't be simple or easy. The normal rhythm of our lives had fractured, and I realized with a sinking heart that nothing would ever feel safe again. By the evening, the silence in the house was unbearable. Every corner seemed to whisper the secrets we weren't supposed to confront yet. I heard faint noises in the hallway. Doors closing, footsteps, the soft hum of the heater, but nothing explained the tension that hung like a storm cloud in every room. And then, I heard it, a soft cough from the living room, almost like a warning. I froze, my heart hammering. Dad's expression tightened, and I realized he heard it too. Mom was back, and the look on her face, pale, unreadable, but heavy with something I couldn't name, made it clear that the conversation she had overheard had changed everything. Whatever she knew, whatever she had just realized, it was about to come crashing into all of us. Just when I thought we had reached the peak of tension, Mom spoke, her voice low, steady, but trembling with something I couldn't place. "I heard everything," she said. My chest tightened, expecting anger or tears, but what came next made my blood run cold. "What you don't realize," she continued, "is that this isn't just about us. There's someone else, someone who's been listening too." Dad's face went pale, his hand clutching the edge of the table. I froze, my mind spinning. Someone else? How could that be possible? Our house had always felt private, safe. But now, the idea that another person had been part of this, silently watching, secretly waiting, it shattered everything. Mom's eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time, I saw fear, not just for herself, but for all of us. "They know too much," she whispered, "and they're not stopping." The room went silent, but my heart wouldn't. I could feel the walls closing in. The weight of secrets suddenly multiplied, and the one thing I knew for certain was that our family's world was no longer our own. Someone else had crossed the line, and whatever came next, there was no turning back. The tension in the house had become unbearable. Every sound felt amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the distant hum of traffic, the faint whistle of wind through the window. I could see it in Dad's eyes, fear, guilt, and the helplessness of a man facing consequences he never wanted. Mom's expression, meanwhile, was unreadable, sharp, and heavy with the knowledge of everything she had overheard, and now, everything else she suspected. I finally had to speak. "Dad, Mom, what's happening?" My voice shook, but the words demanded answers. Dad looked at me, then at Mom, his shoulders slumping like the weight of the world had landed there. "They were listening," he admitted, almost in a whisper. "Not just you, not just me. Someone else has been tracking everything for months. Every conversation, every move. I didn't think it would get this far." Mom stepped closer, her eyes fierce now, glinting with determination. "We can't pretend this is normal anymore," she said. "We have to face it. Together." Suddenly, the front door creaked open. I spun around, my stomach dropping. A shadow slipped into the doorway, then stepped into the light. It was someone I never expected, someone from our own circle, someone we trusted. The betrayal hit like a punch. "You didn't think you could hide it forever, did you?" the figure said, voice cold and calm. Everything unraveled in that moment. Words flew, accusations, confessions, apologies, but beneath it all was a deeper truth we hadn't anticipated. Trust, once broken, doesn't return the same. And yet, even amid the chaos, a strange clarity settled over us. We had been forced to confront our secrets, our fears, and the fragile bonds of family. Mom grabbed my hand, squeezing tightly. Dad nodded, resigned but resolute. And in that moment, I realized that no matter what the intruder had done, our family had survived the first storm, and we were no longer hiding from the truth. But just as relief began to creep in, the figure smirked, dropping a small envelope onto the table. My name was written on it. Inside was something none of us could have predicted.